channel. Now in this channel I will be sharing videos about content that I feel very strongly about. And the first video that I like to share with you about is why you should be concerned about the National Education Policy 2020. Now what is National Education Policy, right? National Education Policy is a comprehensive framework that was developed to guide the development of India. So why should you be concerned about National Education Policy? You might ask me, why should I be? I've already graduated. And why should I be? I mean, it has all the best elements that this country needs. But this is why I say you need to be concerned about it. During the drafting of the National Education Policy 2020, the far-right youth wing of RSS, of the ruling party BJP, was involved in its drafting and all the suggestions were adopted. And I'd like to list a few features of the policy that highlights a few of their suggestions. The first National Education Policy was introduced in 1968. It was then introduced because the Congress MP Siddeshwar Prasad criticized the then government for lacking a vision and philosophy in education. So every few decades a new educational policy is introduced, and so far India has had three. The first one was in 1968 and the second in 1986 under Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi government. The third National Education Policy was introduced by Prime Minister Narendra Modi recently in 2020. So the National Education Policy proposes sweeping changes in school education and higher education. So what are these sweeping changes and why should we be concerned about these sweeping changes? So the changes are the dismantling of the UGC and the All India Council for Technical Education, introduction of 4-year multidisciplinary undergraduate program with multiple exit options, and discontinuation of the MPhil program. Now on the school level, unlike the old education policy which focused on the 10+2 education system, we now have the 5+3+3+4 design corresponding to 8 groups, 3 to 8 years foundational stage, 8 to 11 years preparatory, 11 to 14 middle, and 14 to 18 secondary. This brings early childhood education, also known as preschool education, for children of ages 3 to 5 under the ambit of formal schooling. Now the first and foremost issue that most of us have been concerned about, the mother tongue issue. Now the NEP says that students until class 5 should be taught in their mother tongue or regional language, and from class 5 English will be introduced to them. The NEP also says that mother tongue can be taught until class 5 or beyond class 8 whenever possible. One of the drawbacks that a policy shouldn't have is that it shouldn't be ambiguous, and this policy shows in itself the flaws. It's ambiguous. It does not define exactly what or why, leaving room for more confusion and quarrels in its implementation. The National Education Policy had received a mixed reaction from academics and politicians all across the state. So the news reports say that former Vice Chancellor of Patna University, Raj Bihari Singh, said that the new educational policy is of global character, inviting global universities, foreign universities to come here to India, introducing a lot of elements into the education system that uplifts it to the global level. Also, Raj Bihari Singh was quoted as saying that the whole education system was revamped as per the education policy that was introduced by Lord Macaulay. So this made me think, what is the education policy that was introduced by Lord Macaulay in 1835? Now Lord Macaulay's education policy was introduced through his work that was published known as Minute on Indian Education, in which he advocated that Indians need English education so as to refine their vernacular dialects. Basically what Lord Macaulay was saying, that to have Indians with the taste and the mind of an English person but Indian in form. So my question is, if as quoted by Vice Chancellor of Patna University, Raj Bihari Singh, are we going back to the colonial era stating that us Indians are not smart enough and that we need to be refined so we can address Western nomenclature through our vernacular dialects? Is that what we need? It's true. Us Indians were colonized, I agree, and English is not our language. But we have come to the stage where Indians have mastered the global language English, and it defines the employability level of India, basically development of India. So now if you're saying that we're introducing English only from class 5, wouldn't that weaken the child's hold in the English language? Okay, I know we're talking about schools where they can't afford English professors and teachers to teach them English, but what about the other schools? And why is this applicable to all schools, private and public? Come to today, Indians cultures, I might say. And also in a country like India, where there are diverse cultures, English bridges this gap between cultures. Say you're in a workplace and there are people from who speak different native languages. How do you suppose we communicate? And it's not necessary that all my co-workers know Hindi. So what next? English. Recently, former principal of Patna College, N.K. Chowdhury, was quoted as saying that the national education policy first included states like Bihar, where they don't have educational institutions as good as other states. And the national education policy was initially drafted with the statement that these poor states will be given primary care with regard to education compared to the other states. But in the national education policy that was cleared by the Union Cabinet does not have this. This is missing in the national education policy that is clear. Also, he said that the GDP towards the education system, the 6% GDP is not enough. And then there goes the main debate. We live in a quasi-federal system, and giving a single regulator of education. We all know that the new education policy says that there will no more be UGC, University Grants Commission, and AICTE, All India Council for Technical Education anymore. Instead, we will have one central authority over us, the High Commission of Education in India. And this commission will regulate education all over the states. Now, education falls in the concurrent list of the Constitution. And the concurrent list gives power to the states to decide on their education policy and what they would like to implement. Don't you think that this single regulator, as quoted by N.K. Chowdhury, principal of Patna College, basically decentralizes democracy and administration of education? Now, the danger of power being vested with one authority alone at the center poses threats to the states around and to the center. This will be followed by quarrels and struggles between the center and state regarding matters of education. Now, is that what we want? We already have enough and more quarrels about different things now. This is just another addition to this quarrel. We already know that textbooks have been revamped, syllabuses have been trimmed short apparently, because they want to include what they think is necessary and not include things that they find unnecessary. Now, let me ask you, in a country where there have been more than one religion, not quoting any of the religions, but more than one religion, just quoting a single religion, one religion in a textbook, is that right? I mean, don't we all have identities? Don't we all have something to relate to? Don't we all need something to relate to? So that is going to be another struggle that we're going to have, that we're going to face. The center is going to impose on what should be taught and what shouldn't be taught. There will come a time in the future when we will have to speak to our niece, nephew, our children and tell them that's not what I learned. And this is the actual fact. And children will just have to write things in their paper just so they can get marks, when in actuality, the truth is something else. Education is knowledge that should be truth that sets free. So what is this politics of education? History is important. We need to know where we're from. We need to know our origin. We need to know our lineage. So imposition of education is basically saying that taking away the history of our states and reasserting us with another history that our party thinks we should study because they need to stay in power. That's how insecure they are, seriously. Now, for instance, most South Indians were taught that South Indian languages, in fact a lot of languages, evolved from Sanskrit. But this is not true. Most South Indian languages evolved from Tamil, and to my shock, I recently found that out. And when I was taught in school, I was taught that my native language evolved from Tamil as well. But contrary to that, I've heard different other concepts and ideologies and debates following that. But we do not want to live in a country where we need to fight about our history and concepts regarding history, where it's all over the world. But this is sad. This is really sad when your history is curtailed according to the convenience of a political party just so they can stay in power. In this age of technology where information is available at the tip of our fingers, is it right to trim or not trim certain things? Either ways, what I need to tell you is textbook is not the space for retributive justice or unexamined pride. It is in fact a space where it prompts a student to think, to criticize and to analyze. Can we make students reflect on what they read? For instance, take the nationalist movement debate. Can we be Indians without being nationalists? Maybe a student can come up with a question like that after they read about it. Now, how good an education would that be? Education is not the forum for politics. You know what I get from this? I believe historical truth can be stranger than fiction. Now how sad is that? Now the Indus site, the excavations from Indus sites, the scripts from Indus sites, from Mohenjo-daro to Dholavira, from Lothal to Rakhigarhi. Now all these sites and all the scripts from these sites taken from our archaeologists. Now let me tell you, the history of India remains a known unknown. And why is that? Because the government version of these Indus scripts does not match the scientific version of the scientific evidence provided by our scientists. And why is that so? Because our scientists bow to political pressure and make their statements as per the convenience of a political party. Now let me give you a foresight into the future. What will be the result of the National Education Policy 2020? Class-based inequality will widen as rich, posh people can afford posh English medium schools and further go across hinterland, while the poor will be stuck with mother tongue based education, struggling still with development and climbing up the social ladder. As of 1950s, our former Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru fought hard to include English as one of the official languages of India, and that's where he put India on the map, on the global map today. And now this is taking our state, this is taking our country back to the colonial era by undoing what was done. My request to all of you, please don't neglect this. Please don't ignore this thinking it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with you. You should be concerned about this because we, the youth of India, hold the key to the future of this country. Should we let this imposition, should we let democracy to die its slow natural death? It's already dead. I believe it's already dead and it's on its way to be buried. So please heed to my request and please start reacting in every way possible. We live in a democratic country and we have the freedom of speech. Used in the right way, there is so much that we, the youth of India, can do to build a better country. A country where there is freedom, where once there was freedom and secularism. Now, I'd like to share a lot more on historical facts and historical truth in my next video. So please do like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell button for more updates.